make me feel like I'm alive again.
Hello everyone, the second Technopath here, and I am going to be telling you how to use the Sparky in Clash Royale. The Sparky is a high-risk, high-reward unit that costs 6 elixir to deploy. Now the Sparky is what it's most famous for, is dealing large amounts of area damage at one point, which can deal up at least 1400 damage, which makes it great at taking down high-health troops and crown towers. Unfortunately, however, it has a drawback requiring it to charge for at least 5 seconds before it is able to fire a second time, which makes it absolutely dreadful if frozen or zapped, because this will reset the timer, which will make it at least 8 seconds before it is able to attack again. But it is also a very effective unit when paired correctly, so without further ado, let me show you the deck that I use. I have a Wizard, a Fire Spirit, my Sparky of course, Tombstone, Skeleton Army, Minion Horde, Rage, and of course I have the Zap for taking out large hordes. So, let's get right into the battles here. As you can see, I am going to try to lead with my Tombstone, but unfortunately I did not end up with it as much as I could have. So I prefer to lead with my Tombstone if at all possible, but if I do not have my Tombstone, then I will wait out and let my opponent make the first move. Because the Sparky deck is all about waiting for your opponent to make a mistake. Because you can only be effective with the Sparky when you have a high elixir advantage over your opponent. So what I prefer to do is I like to have the Sparky paired with the Wizard, so then it can take out large hordes from the top and large hordes from the bottom. However, this combo is very easily affected by the Giant Skeleton, because the Giant Skeleton is very easily taken out by the Sparky and the Wizard. However, it will also deal significant damage to the Sparky, and the death damage dealt by its bomb is enough to take out both the Sparky and the Lizard, leaving you with a -3 elixir advantage. Sorry, -5 elixir advantage. However, this is also countered by the Sparky user, because if the Sparky is compared to the Skeleton Army, the Skeleton Army's bomb takes 3 seconds to deploy, and if the Sparky is far enough away when it shoots, if you rage the Sparky's fire time is decreased to 3.5 seconds, which is remarkably close to the Giant Skeleton's bomb deploy time, but still not quite enough. But if your Sparky is far enough away when it is raged, then it will begin building before the skeleton has died. And when the skeleton dies, between the time that it takes for the bomb to drop from the skeleton and then deploy, the Sparky has already gotten off the shot. Now, a giant skeleton will not always kill the Sparky with its death damage, but it will do a significant amount of damage, and especially if your giant skeleton attacks the Sparky right before your Sparky is doomed. So, be on the lookout for these giant skeletons, for they will wreck your Sparky if you use them incorrectly. Another great counter for the Sparky, however, is the Skeleton Army or the Minion Horde, but most Sparky users will take this into account, which is why I have it paired with my Wizard, and occasionally my Fire Spirits if my Wizard has not cycled around it. Now what this is very effective at doing is making a strong push, but the only issue is that the push is more than likely expensive, which leaves you open to attacks. So what I like to do is I like to position it as far from the bridge as I can, so then I have at least some form of decent defense until my elixir has built up. And then by the time they cross the bridge, I will have enough elixir for a skeleton army, or maybe even a minion horde if I'm lucky enough. So then I can counter those pesky elite barbs. So now to talk about another counter for the Sparky, and this one is a fairly new addition, but the Electro Wizard is absolutely terrifying for Sparky users. This completely changed the game for us. So the Electro Wizard, for those of you who do not know, works like the Zap upon deployment. It will stun your enemy for a period of time and deal a small amount of damage, which means that if you have your Sparky paired up with any spawn troops or horde units, they're dead. And as well as that, your Sparky's charge has been reset. But that's not the worst part. The Electro Wizard will deal a brief period of stun damage whenever he attacks your Sparky, which means that it resets the Sparky's clock. And although the Electro Wizard has a slow attack speed, it is nowhere near as slow as the Sparky. So this is why I would recommend that if you see an Electro Wizard on the field with a Sparky, you want to play defensive. Let your opponent play the Electro Wizard before you play down your Sparky, so that he has to cycle through it again before you play down your Sparky. And one of the best ways to counter Electro Wizards, and not a lot of people know this, but the Electro Wizard can only target 2 units at a time, which means that if you use a minion horde or a skeleton army on the Electro Wizard, he will be gone in a matter of seconds. So that is 2 counters down. Now to talk about one of the most effective counters, although one may not think about it. The Golem is actually a very strong counter for the Sparky. Now I know what you're thinking, why would it be the Golem? It doesn't even attack the Sparky. Because the Golem never comes alone. It has the highest hit points of any unit in the game, except maybe a highly leveled Lava Hound. But one of the benefits about using the Golem is that, although it has a high elixir cost, it is able to tank several hits from the Sparky, and it will be able to destroy a skeleton army, which means that if you play down a Sparky, and someone plays down a Golem in the same lane, your Sparky is going to be fixated on that Golem for the rest of the duration of the Golem's life. The best way to take out a Golem, as most people know, is to use a skeleton army on it, which is why I have one in my deck. But unfortunately, the Golem's death damage when it is destroyed is going to completely demolish a skeleton army, leaving 2 Golemites to distract my Sparky. Now this wouldn't be so bad if this Golem did not come alone. More than likely, they have either a Valkyrie, a Wizard, or a Witch right behind it, which means that all of those damage can build up very, very quickly while the Sparky is trying to take out the Golemites. So that's another thing to be aware of. So I would recommend, if you do not have a high damage dealing troop like I have my Wizard, I would definitely recommend that you pair up your deck with a Fireball so that you are able to knock back units that could potentially damage your Sparky more than it already has been. Now, let me talk real quick about the Rage that I have in my deck. Rage seems like an odd choice to have when there are so many other better cards that could fill it. But for 2 Elixir, it is a great advantage for Sparky users. It is greatly underrated, because when you use the Rage, as I said before, it will speed up the Sparky's attack speed by 35%, bringing it down to 3.5 seconds. Now, this doesn't sound like a large improvement, but in the game, it is a massive improvement. If you pair your Sparky up with a Wizard, and you have a Horde unit or a Skeleton army right behind it, then that tower is essentially gone, unless your Sparky is nearly gone too. Because the Horde units will come in and sweep, and unless your opponent has a Zap or an Arrow ready, they are going to have to either waste a large amount of elixir for a distracting troop, or they are going to have to try to recycle through their deck to find something that would work. Now, a lot of people are going to have something to prepare for this, but a lot of people at the same time will not. But the Skeleton army is very well paired with the Sparky, unless there is a large damage-dealing spell available for the other opponent. Because the Skeletons are great distracting units. By the time it takes them to reach the tower, the Sparky has already gotten a shot off, and that is half of the tower's life right there. So, when you play Sparky, you want to play defensively after you have taken the first tower. Don't try to make that push to the 3rd tower unless you have a massive elixir advantage on your opponent, because the elixir advantage is everything in the game. Like, it boils down to 3 basic components that makes the game interesting for Sparky users. It is the beginning hand, it is your opponent's deck cycle, as in which order they use their cards, and the elixir advantage. And the elixir advantage is by far the most important step in the game. And this is especially true for the Sparky users. Because the Sparky is not a cheap unit and it is so easily countered by a lot of units, It is very easy to lose 6 elixir on something that you never end up using, and this is why the Sparky is such a risky card. And a lot of people know this too. If you see a Sparky on the other side of the field, you are either going to work hard to counter it, or you are going to push the other lane so that the opponent cannot back up their own Sparky. So this is one of the tricks of being a Sparky user. Once you have the Sparky on your field, if your opponent starts pushing the other lane, you have to do a quick thought. You have to figure out, is my opponent going to be able to take out my tower in the time that I can? Because if he can, then you should probably back up your Sparky as well and rage it. Because if you can back up your Sparky and rage it, then you have a chance of making it to your opponent's King's Tower. Now, the King's Tower is not an ideal move for a lot of circumstances, but as a Sparky user, if your opponent pushes the other lane, it could be the difference between winning and losing the game. When your opponent tries to take advantage of the other lane, your best goal is to do what they are doing, but do it even better. So what I would recommend doing is pair up your Sparky with a wizard or a skeleton, and then once they make it to the bridge, follow it up with a skeleton army or a minion horde. And unless your opponent has a fireball ready, they should be able to take out your first tower, especially if you rage it. Which means that by the time it gets to the King's Tower, you will have your Sparky cycled through if you use a zap. So this is an extremely effective strategy, or so I have found, and I would definitely recommend using it. Now, unfortunately, like most decks, there is about a 50-50% chance this will work because it is very dependent on your opponent's hand. If your opponent has a lot of spawn troops, this is a terrible deck to use, because unfortunately, the Sparky is distracted by every passing unit, which means that every time it shoots something, it takes 5 seconds to reload. And those 5 seconds are the difference between life and death for Sparky. By the time it has shot 1 unit from the Goblin, it is attacked by 4 or 5 more. So, you definitely want to be on the lookout if you see a spawner deck. What I recommend is if your opponent uses a spawner deck, you should play defensively. Put down wizards and zaps and fire spirits and your tombstone, and try to keep your opponent at bay and at least make it a draw. If your opponent leaves a side undefended, go for it. But aside from that, play defensively. So that is it for the Sparky tutorial.